On the theme of Vavim Ha'amudim and connections, we have the very special opportunity to learn tonight and to be inspired. To be inspired by two very special neshamos. To quote Michael's English father, it's not them whose neshamos need Aliyah, but it's us, our neshamos, that need Aliyah. And it's a tremendous kavod to have both Rabbi Heshie Lowensturm and Einat Danino here and to learn about their children this evening. Before I get there, I wanted to share something about the guest that brought everybody here. This is Mendy Koenig. Mendy Koenig is a tremendous Ohev Yisrael. He is somebody that has been involved since October 7th. Before, and literally he said every 2 weeks, he's coming back to America with different individuals who lost family members to give chizuk and to create connections between Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and Chutz La'aretz. But more than that, he's making Shabbat Onim every single Shabbos for families that need a break and need respite. He has two homes on the beach in Caesarea and is there just to give people a break from life. We all know, and as much as we think we know, we don't even know the amount of trauma and difficulties families are going through, and Mendy is there to really help and hold their hand through this all. As you can see, this is tremendously apolitical. A friend of mine, I didn't know was connected to Mendy, called me last night and said, I heard you're having Mendy Koenig. Let me tell you, everything he does is L'Shem Shamayim, and everything he does is to help the Jewish people. And he said, literally last week, he was there, visiting all these facilities where Mendy is helping people. He's been on Shabbat homes, and if you want to just give Mendy a hug and just say shloyach to him, he'll show you a book that he has with all the pictures of all the Shabbat Onim and Chagim and Smachot that he's helped facilitate over the last 17, 18 months. I hope that Shomrei Torah can partner with him. He's making a very, very big seudah for Purim this year, for all of the families. And I hope through our Matana Lavionim campaign, you can help Mendy directly now, where you can, online, myself, Yudin, Ari, Jack is in Florida, find any one of us, and we hope to really support this very special seudah and all of their efforts that are happening in Eretz Yisrael. So, Mendy, you should have a tremendous hatzlacha and bracha, and Hashem should continue to give you strength and siyata d'shmaya to continue helping all of these families in Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Heshie Lowensturm made Aliyah over 30 years ago from our area. His principal Kushner in RPRY. He lived in Far Rockaway, and he had a very, very special son, Elisha. Hadas, Elisha's wife, spoke in the community about 6 months ago, and Sarah still is repeating stories about all of the messages that he had. He was an amazing father and husband and son. He left behind six children. He learned Torah every single day with every one of his children. And when you see the videos of his kids, you're like, I want to be a better father. I want to be a better Jew. Because you can see his love of Am Yisrael and Torah. It is really palpable in everything that he does. It really is a tremendous kavod to have Elisha's father, Rabbi Heshie Lowensturm, share some words with us this evening.
Thank you, Rabbi Roberts. Thank you very much, congregation of Shomrei Torah, for inviting us to speak at this forum. Our story starts with our time in Highland Park, New Jersey. My wife and I moved to Highland Park, New Jersey not long after we got married. We had we started in Washington Heights, and I was in the Mayan Kollel. And we moved to Highland Park, New Jersey when Elisha was born. We lived in Highland Park for 8 years. We wanted to make Aliyah right after we got married, but we didn't have a penny in our pocket. So I worked in RPRY as a Rebbe for 6 years. And we raised our children in Highland Park with the feeling that all this is moving towards Eretz Yisrael. We used to buy them books in Hebrew. We used to get cassette tapes with children's songs that came with a book with the Hebrew words. And we played up that we're moving to Eretz Yisrael. And finally, after 8 years, we thought we had the wherewithal to do it. And we ordered strand movers, to back up our house in a lift. And when the lift was all packed and drove away, I took the boys and I drove to Port Elizabeth, where we looked at the big ships and these big containers being loaded on the ship. Makes no difference that it wasn't, I don't know where the ship was going, it wasn't on a container. And we said, Lehitraot ba'aretz. And when I showed them how, when they locked the container, this seal will be broken only by the customs officials in Eretz Yisrael. We had 4 children in Highland Park. We now have 4 children, and 2 more were born later on in Eretz Yisrael. Elisha was the oldest of this. He grew up in Highland Park until the age of 8. He was an art light in school. He was a popular kid who loved to do mitzvahs. He even founded a club called Mitzvah Man Club. He got all his friends at recess to play Mitzvah Man, which meant going around the yard, looking for people in trouble, and seeing if they can solve their problems by doing mitzvahs. He loved the mitzvahs. He used to, for weeks before Pesach, you remember the last year in kindergarten, they made matzah covers. So he spent his time making matzah covers for everybody in the family. He used to make little holders for his head for an esrog. And he did everything. He picked up the little esrog with Simcha Shel Mitzvah. And that Simcha Shel Mitzvah continued with him all his life. When he put on tefillin and when he learned Torah. Finally, at the age of 8, he moved to Eretz Yisrael. And he wanted to start the Mitzvah Man Club in his new school in Beit Shemesh. But it didn't go so well. Other kids in the class didn't want to play Mitzvah Man, especially since Mitzvah Man couldn't play soccer. The kids was a kind of a rough bunch, and our kids in general had a rough adjustment to Eretz Yisrael. But Eretz Yisrael and the Kenevi Yisurim, we brought them up to understand what we do in Eretz Yisrael is holy. You can't always see the holiness right away, but it will come. Elisha went to the Yeshivat Tichonit of Sha'alim. And there he became not just a lover of mitzvahs, but also a master. He used to learn all the time. And he was known in the yeshiva also someone who listened to others, who smiled at everyone, and brought them to learn with him. By the end of high school, when he had to pick a place to go to Yeshivat Yisrael, he picked the yeshiva in Yerucham. For those of you who are not familiar, Yerucham is off in the desert. There is nothing to do in Yerucham but learn Torah. And those who go to the Yeshivat Yisrael in Yerucham do so expecting to grow spiritually and in their learning, and not to do anything else. In Yerucham, they taught the message that everything you do in life has to come under the umbrella of Avodat Hashem. Learning in yeshiva is Avodat Hashem, but so is going out of the yeshiva to serve in the army, Avodat Hashem. Going to raise a family should be done under the principles of Avodat Hashem, as well as going out and getting a job is Avodat Hashem. And everything each grade in life, whether it started in a town called Yokneam. He and Adas lived in a place called Harish. Harish is towards the north of Hadera, where he and his wife Adas joined the Gavin Torani. Gavin Torani is a group of people who get together and join a community to bring more Yiddishkeit to the community. They had each other for social support. They gave shiurim in the various centers where they were, whether either in shuls or in the community center, invited the public at large to come. They organized the Yom HaAtzmaut celebration to have a theme of Kedusha and a celebration that Hashem has restored us to our land. And they had important sudas together, as well as other events for the entire community, to bring everyone into the spirit of Yiddishkeit. He also was a very devoted father. He used to take the kids on Tiyulim. When he came home from Shul Friday night, he used to always dance with them, and to bring a simcha, to teach his children also to have simcha shemitzvah. When in the yeshiva in Yerucham, the Hesed program, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but for those who are not, the way the Hesed program works is that you spend 2 years of learning in the yeshiva, and at the end of those 2 years you do your army service. Now, normal army service in Eretz Yisrael is 3 years, but the army many years ago allowed the boys who learned in the yeshiva to serve for about 20 months, just more than a year and a half. And they did their regular service for their third and fourth year in the yeshiva. And then thereafter, they do what's called miluim, or reserve duty. Every year, the soldiers would be called together in special reserve units, and they practice for chas v'shalom lo aleinu, in case of a time of emergency, they'll be called up as a group to serve the country. Elisha was in the Armored Corps. He was a gunner in a tank. And that's what he did as well for the reserve duty. Every year, for 2 weeks, he would be called up along with his other members of the reserve tank corps. And they'd maneuver, and they would train, and then they'd go back home. They'd park their tanks in the warehouse in a camp called Nachshanim, which was the base of the reserve battalion. And they'd go home, and Elisha lived his life with Torah and mitzvahs. He also volunteered for the Tzohar organization. Yergun Rabbi Tzohar provides many services religious services to the people who are a bit bashful about turning to the Rabbanut. He volunteered for a program which gave bar mitzvah lessons to Chiloni kids. This organization, Tzohar, used to offer any Chiloni kid that wanted bar mitzvah lessons. They provided free of charge through their volunteers. And he was one of those volunteers. And after Elisha got killed, the Yergun Rabbi Tzohar took tributes from the parents of kids he had taught and put them together in a pamphlet of how their children were enriched by having someone so devoted as such a model to be followed as Elisha. When a year and a half ago in Simchas Torah, the war started, Elisha had been in shul like everybody else, and they had heard rumors that things were afoot down in the south. Motzei Yom Tov, they heard exactly what was happening. Elisha knew that he was going to be called during the night up to service. So he said to Adas, we need to do 2 things tonight. We need to put away the sukkah, and you need to give me a haircut, because I don't know when I will next get one. And then indeed during the night he was called up, and he and his comrades went to the Machaneh Nachshanim, where they greased the tanks and swiveled the guns and continued practicing maneuvering. The regular Armored Corps units were sent right away to Gaza and Lebanon, but his unit was held in reserve for the first weeks of the war, and they practiced maneuvering, attacking as a team, and defensive maneuvers, etc. But this wouldn't be a full-time thing. It's a limit to how much you can practice, especially when you've been doing this every year for 20 years. So he called me one night and said, he finds that now that he's in the army, he actually has more time to learn than he used to have. At home, he had other responsibilities, which he did pleasurably. But now in the army, he finds his evenings are free. We have a picture of him doing guard duty in the warehouse where the tanks are housed. We see the room is about a room, I would say, double the size of this room. And they have 10 tanks lined up along one wall, and 10 tanks on the other wall. And then in a space, like that, about the size of the parquet of this room, he was sitting in the middle of it with his gun slung over his shoulder, and he was learning the Rambam. And this is how he did his guard duty. He said, anyone who comes in, I'm on alert right away. But he had more time to do this. He said to me, until now he was always mocking me to learn his Rambam Yomi. I don't know if many of you remember that 2 weeks after the war started, Daf Yomi started Bava Kama. He said, now starting Bava Kama would be a good time to get in, and a good opportunity to get into Daf Yomi as well. So he started learning Daf Yomi as well. And a couple nights a week he would come and talk over some of the points of that day's stuff. And this went on for about 7 weeks. And then the unit was given their orders to load up the tanks on the trailers, and they were being sent to southern Gaza. The army, if you remember, attacked first in northern Gaza. That's where the regular army corps units went. The week before Hanukkah, Elisha's unit was sent to lead the attack on Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. He told us, and we didn't understand, he told us 2 days before they went in, that we're not allowed to bring our phones into Gaza, so you won't hear from me. The commander of the corps will occasionally send out messages to the parents, giving a kind of a general description of how we're doing. And indeed, we got almost daily messages. The Chaver is doing their work, they're working hard, they're accomplishing great things in Gaza. And they went in on a Sunday, and then Friday, suddenly Elisha called us. And we were happy to hear his voice, and we gave him for Shabbos. And I said to him, to what do we merit that you called us and you're no longer in Gaza? He said, our tank is broken. They have to fix it. So while they're fixing it, I have a chance to make some phone calls. But as soon as it's fixed, we're going back in. And it turns out he went back in on Sunday. And then the following Wednesday, before, when he called us, I also asked him, I see pictures of soldiers lighting Hanukkah candles in Gaza. Have you had any of that? And he goes, candles? What kind of candles? Osek b'mitzvah, patur mitzvah. We're busy fighting. We're doing important things. And we're patur from other mitzvahs. And I said to him, so they're keeping you pretty busy there in Gaza? And he said, oh boy, I'll tell you all about it after the war. But boy, are they ever. And then the following Wednesday, after my wife and I finished dinner, 3 army officers came up to our door. In Israel, 3 army officers coming to your door means only one thing. There are no 2 ways to explain what they're doing there. There's not even anything to ask about. They come to tell you that your family member is fallen in battle. They explained to us that that day, a unit of infantry, Givati infantry, had gotten into a firefight in Khan Yunis, and they had taken wounded. And so, Chativat Re'em, the Re'em Brigade, which was Elisha's reserve unit, was sent to extract the wounded and to provide covering fire as they did that. And Elisha's tanks was one of the tanks that provided the covering fire. And on the convoy leaving Khan Yunis to the outside of Gaza, his tank was struck by an RPG missile, which penetrated. And Elisha was a gunner, so this missile took off the leg of the loader, and then Elisha caught the brunt of the missile and died instantly. During the funeral, the army brings the family to the funeral in a minivan. This was devastating. I don't have much to describe about the shock we were in, because having gotten a message like that, knowing that there's going to be a lot of arrangements to make, people to be told, etc., and to prepare ourselves emotionally for the funeral. At least we didn't have to make the army did the funeral for us. I just remember when we got to the cemetery, there were 1,000 people waiting, and our daughter-in-law Hadass got off the van and looked at everybody standing with their heads down, and she said, "Why are you standing with your heads down? We're proud of my husband. He was a Gibor Yisrael. He is someone we're proud of. Well, this is what we have to do to live in our land, and this is what we're going to do. And we're going to go on where to live." And that's what we really set the pattern for our family, and we're going to continue living. We do not regret making Aliyah. Eretz Yisrael, Niknabi Yisurim. These are the Yisurim that we were given, and it's part of living in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem makes his own Hishmonot, and decided this is what's going to be, and we're going to go on and continue living. And so we had it, and so we have. It's not easy. It's a lot easier to say than actually have done it. But we've made the efforts, and we found that what helped us the most was getting together with other families that have gone through this themselves. And by talking to them and sharing stories, we are able to realize and put a lot of perspective that we're going to go on and continue living in Eretz Yisrael. Unfortunately, there are many, many families that are not able to recover very easily. They get a message like this, and they sink into a black hole emotionally. They can't imagine how they're going to go on and continue to live anymore with a husband who's no longer there, a father who's no longer there, or a son who's no longer there. And the Ministry of Defense does not a bad job of providing financially for the families of those who fell in battle. They give a stipend. They'll make sure that my daughter-in-law and the children always have bread on the table and clothing in the closets. They don't pay for any fancy vacations or anything, but they'll be supported with their minimal needs. And the government also provides therapy for any family member who wishes to seek it. What the Army and the government doesn't do is be able to pull people out of their black emotional hole and give them a vision of how to go further. And this is where Menucha Yeshua comes in. The organization started by Mendy Kenny. They provide weekends for families who've lost a family member in the battle, in the war, for them to come for Shabbos to a nice hotel where they get good food, where there's entertainment, where there's music, where there's sometimes a massage waiting. And more importantly than anything else, they get together with other families and talk to each other. And this helps them come to grips with what happened and when they need to pull up the boots and go on with life. And it's not just parents like myself and my wife and Elkins, and not just the widows, but the children, the orphans as well. Think of it, when my grandchildren were told by Hadass that their father had fallen in battle, they said to him, but the kids didn't fully grasp all of it. Then there was Shiva. And Shiva, each one at their own level. The children ranged from age 12 to half a year. Came to grips with what was going on in the Shiva. And then Shiva was over, they went back to school. But in school, they suddenly felt very weird. They were suddenly the ones who didn't have a father. And and suddenly everybody was being nice to them, and nobody wanted to pick on them. And that's a very tough thing for a kid. Whatever a kid's social situation in school, it starts when he starts in Gan Yeladim, and he gradually builds a social position for himself in school that he knows about and is comfortable with and deals with, and suddenly all the rules have changed, and the kids don't know how to deal with that. It's very difficult for them, to the point where they suddenly didn't want to go anywhere because maybe they were looked at as the orphans. And even when my family was divided to the weekend, divided by the Rabbi Heshie Lowensturm, one of my grandsons at first didn't want to go. He didn't want to go someplace that was meant for bereaved families. He only wanted to go someplace where normal people went. But my wife convinced him to come and said, well, you can spend more time with me, and lo and behold, our grandchildren found other children who were orphans. And the other children were just like them. And they made friends and friendships that continued on to other events by other organizations where they found each other. And this too helped them put their new situation into perspective. Our family has an immense amount of karas hatov to Mendy Kenning and the Rabbi Heshie Lowensturm organization. And we feel that, because of that organization as well, as the efforts and the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're going to continue going on, living in the land we've chosen, living in Eretz Israel. Thank you for listening.